Hello everyone, today we have a different video because we do a code review. One of my subscribers joined my Discord, which is the link in the description, and asked me if I could check out his source code. Initially he wanted me to help him fix a bug, but he fixed the bug before I had the time to help him. I didn't check out the code. So this is basically a first time reaction to the code. I know what the code does or what it should do, which is a tokenizer in JavaScript. Please keep in mind I'm not mainly a JavaScript developer, I'm mainly a C# developer, but I have quite some JavaScript experience in my life. And we will check out the code and a little bit talk about how the code is structured, what I would do change or what I would do differently. But also keep in mind, I'm not mainly a JavaScript developer, so there's a lot of pain for me to read JavaScript code. So I've checked out the repository. I will link the repository in the description. And also, I want to thank you for subscriber Jason for the opportunity to review his code. Next week, again, we will make videos about the MMORPG. I'm really sorry I had a lot of personal issues to deal with the last 2 weeks. That's why there were no video, but we are back on track again. But let's check out the code. Let's hit up VS Code for that. And that's pretty much the code. So this is a tokenizer. That's what I know about it. And basically what a tokenizer does, it takes a string like public class test public int my pop. That, for example, for C#, the tokenizer creates a token public, creates a token class, creates a token test, creates a token. You get the idea. It takes every special word or every token and spits it out in a list. This is the first step. You need to build a compiler, and there are some tricky things. For example, let's say you have a string. Let's say this is string, and you do here equal Loren ipsum. Then obviously this string here should be its own token. So we would have string here instead of int, and then we have an equal here, and there is obviously a semicolon missing. Oh, sorry. And this should be one token. That's one of the hardest things to deal with a tokenizer, to get this right. So this would be the token list I would expect for a C# compiler to have this. We have made a video, if I remember correctly, about the scripting language we have developed ourselves in the MMORPG, which includes a tokenizer like this for a language which is close to C#. So if you want to have a C# version of a good tokenizer, I check it out in the MMORPG. It is. When we check out my repository of the MMORPG, you can find it pretty much. I think it's in the server and common, because both can use it. And there it is, scripting language. And we have, it's called Alexa here, but it's a tokenizer. It's the same deal. And this is what the tokenizer in our MMORPG will look like. And I honestly expect something close to that. The great thing, if you have a good tokenizer, one of the measure points to have a good tokenizer is that it goes through the string one time. So we basically have a for loop, and if we analyze each character in a string and need to touch them just one time, this makes a good tokenizer. And with those tokens, you can do all sort of things. You could, for example, do syntax checks on these tokens. You can find out there's a semicolon missing or something. You can find it out going through the tokens really fast. And the next thing to build a compiler is to make an abstract syntax tree out of it. That's the common way to do. Then you can do compiler optimization on this tree, which in our MMORPG we don't do because that's overkill. And then you can basically take this syntax tree and create bytecode, assembler code, or whatever you want out of it. That's one of the easiest steps when you have the abstract syntax tree in hand. But this would go too far. We do code review this JavaScript code, but this is what I expect, but for the language which he called Salt. So let's check out what he has done. So first of all, we have a main HTML. The first thing I want to do is open it up. And I see nothing. So let's check that out. Oh, C console for tokens. First thing I would do, I would not comment that. So when somebody opens the website, it's written here, why not? Okay, let's check it out. We see tokens, we see an array here. We see an empty object and an arrow, which is not too much. So let's find out. Let's start with the first one, SALTJS. This is basically the description of the language, I guess. And I think here is the input. And I think because he added one token, this is the one we see. This should be the empty one, and then we see the other one, which is basically this one, and then it stops. So maybe it's my browser. Do I have another one installed? Yes, I have Chrome. Even though I never ran it before. What does the Chrome console say? The same thing, so it's not a browser issue. I don't know why, but his tokenizer has an issue. Let's find out. So we have operators defined. Return is normally not an operator, but you can treat it as one. That's possible, but in my opinion, it's not an operator. But you do you. We have an action operator. This one is not supported in my scripting language, funny enough, but that's great. Yeah, you have concatenation and addition operator splitted. That's you can do that, and I think I have done that also, but you have to do some more intelligent check if it is concatenation and addition, and I don't think this is a task for the tokenizer. I think this is more a task for the syntax tree, or even one step further. I don't think you need to specify which one it is in the tokenizer, but that's fine. This way, the great thing that he did that is we should be able to say, for example, if I remember correctly, in PHP, a dot is the concatenation, and we could make this possible simply by changing that here if the code is written correctly, which is great. So it's actually cleaner to have it like he does. So scrap what I said before. So we have symbols. These actually are operators. They are also. Okay, hyphen, end of whatever that means. And I think there should be more white spaces. \t, for example, is another white space. But that's fine. Keywords with as he could also add. In my opinion, return is a keyword. It should be here instead of at the top. but that's just my opinion. It doesn't change too much. So we have variables, which has a name. I don't know why it's scrapped. Oh, it's because name is reserved by TypeScript, but doesn't matter. It has a name and it has a value, has some helper functions. Yeah, you can define them like that. I would prefer it like this, to be honest. And then we have a double dot here. But that's just me. I think this is personal preference. So we have is letter input match, yeah, regex A to Z, is word, multiple words A to Z. So these I in regex is case insensitive, so AZ and the upper ones are fine. He could also do AZ and remove the case sensitivity, but it doesn't matter. I think case insensitive search is even faster, but I'm not sure because it too lowers the string and does a search then. But that's fine, obviously. It checks the letter with a simple regex. It checks the word with a regex. Needs to be more than one. Or plus is one and more, I guess. And it needs to end and start with that. A letter is just a single character. I would do this check differently. Because if this is a single character, if you know the ASCII table, A and Z in the ASCII table are a continuous number. So A is the lowest one, B is the next one, B is basically A plus 1 and so. And if you know that, you could do this to access the first character because this is just a character check. Or if you enter the character, you can choose input. And you could do if input is greater equal A and input is lower equal Z. And to make it case insensitive, we have to also check for the bigger ones. So A and input lower equal big Z. Since AND has a greater precedence than the OR, this is operated correctly, like multiplication before addition in math. But for readability, I like to add the parentheses. And this, if we do that, this should do the same thing like the bottom one, but way faster. That's my opinion. I would do the top one, and we will test that out. And maybe we have our first suggestion. Then is word, basically that's a great solution for that. Is symbol, that's really bad because he has defined symbols, and when I want my comma to be a strange character, let's take this one. This is a paragraph. If I want my comma to be a paragraph, I want the is symbol to be fine with that. But since a symbol is not using my defined values here, I think this is very bad. So these can get out of sync with the is symbol detection, and that shouldn't be the case. So he should be able to go through those and be able to. Do he use them? Yes, he does. Okay. Okay. That's a biggie for me. Use the salt symbol. Use the salt symbol list. Okay, is digit, that's an obvious one. It's the other one like that. And it works the same way. I think this should not be a regex. This should be actually just returning that. Is way faster. Is number, is integer, that's a JavaScript function that actually works. You could also use this function here, but yeah, I think this is even slower than the regex. Is reserved, you have to test that. I'm not 100% sure. Is reserved key as a tip anyway. If you do performance thing, always test them. Sometimes there are some odd cases where you think this one is more performant than the other one, but if you actually test it, it's not the case. Is reserved keyword or operator. Here he has done that. I don't know why he hasn't used the same thing with the symbols. He could definitely do that. Return sort symbols includes input. That would be great. We will test that. So he does keyword or operators, which is great. A keyword and the operator is the same thing for him. That's why he can have return as an operator, even though it is a keyword, in my opinion. But that's fine. This is basically the language description, which is awesome. And then we have main.js. What does it do? It does the actually algorithm, it looks like. And then we have tokenizer.js, which also look like console log tokens. It goes through the input. Character plus string, that's looks like he has two versions of it. One is main.js and one is tokenizer.js. We have to find out what it is. Let's, instead of tokenizer.js, use main.js. Let's see what will happen. Yes, we have tokens. This looks way better. I think this should be this algorithm here in tokenizer.js is not ready. He looks like he's trying to refactor it. We will check out both. Let's check out analyzer.js first. Just a bunch of predefined variables, which would be great to also print them. So we have variables and errors. So let's check it out. Variables not defined. That's maybe because is this used? Salt.variables. Looks like he hasn't done that part by now. So let's ignore that. Is errors used? No. Okay, let's ignore the analyzer.js then. It doesn't do anything for now. So let's check out first of all, the tokenizer.js, which doesn't work. Or doesn't work completely. It's an action operator. Let's check that out. Why isn't it working? So I ignore all this stuff. This is basically variable initialization. I don't care about that. We have a clear function, which seems which clears the. This is a strange JavaScript thing. We have a global variable string, which even is 2 times in here, which is not needed. So we could definitely remove one. So we have a variable string, and this variable could be cleared here, which is a global variable, which as a C# developer pains my heart. But as a JavaScript developer, this is how you do things, I guess. So we go through the text one time, like I said. This is good for this is good for a tokenizer. You go through the string one time. If you have to go multiple times through the string, your algorithm obviously sucks. So we have a position index. I guess this is needed for error output, so that you can say you have an issue in line whatever, in this case in position whatever. Line is more human readable, so I would change that to line and only increment that when a new line has occurred. This is how I do it in my script. In my tokenizer, it makes it more readable, because if you have position 285, it's really hard to find out which line that is. Then we read the character and we add the character to the string, to our variable that we are working with. String is a very odd name for a variable. I wouldn't do that. I would name that token, to be honest. So let's change that. Yeah, it's too much to change. String is basically, I will name this one token. So we add the character to the token, then we check if the token is an action operator. And if that is, he's just checking. This is, like I said, the tokenizer JS isn't done yet. Let's analyze the main JS. He just have 2 things here checked. Honestly, I wouldn't check in code to GitHub that isn't working. So I would have checked in it this way, and then I wouldn't even looked at the tokenizer JS. So this is working. This is spitting out the tokens. It even has the empty one. Let's fix that real fast. This is just this one. I would remove that. This looks way better. And even if you have that, which should be fine, maybe at the start, we remove, we clear it, which is, where do we add the token here? All token equals that. I think that is even better. When you run your algorithm, it clears the tokens and then it adds the tokens that he wants to add. This is what I would change. Then we go through the array, and like here, he saves the position for error cases, I guess. We will see where he uses it. Then he reads the character at this position in the input string. So here is basically where you write your code, and then main.js will run it, and we will go through that each position. Character is the current position. Then the first thing we check if the character is a letter. So this is hard to read. So I would do functions for that. I would create a function. Tokenize this letter. That's what I would do. And then I would put all this stuff in a function. Because you can't, those very deep indentions will screw you up. So we have the string and we have the character. String we don't need to define, it's a global variable. Character also is a global variable. Okay, even better, we don't need anything. Is inside string, whatever is global, everything is global. I really don't like that. So checks its white space, then if it's not inside the string, okay. Reserved keyword. So we have tokenize is ladder, and then here we have tokenize is ladder. Does it still work? 7 looks still the same. I would definitely do it that way. Is digit is really small. Yeah, really simple. Still same deal. Function tokenize digit. I mean, you might think, well, it is the same, but it is really hard to read when you go this deep, and it's really hard to understand your code. So this we have to clean it up. We don't have to. I can read the code like that. I'm used to read assembler code, so I'm really used to read very, very unstructured, crazy stuff. But still, it is easier, even no matter how good you are, it is easier. So why wouldn't we make it easier? This one is one of the more complex ones, which is the symbol. And we will find out why. Tokenize symbol would be great name. And here would be tokenize digit instead of is digit, which is absolutely bad naming. So tokenize letter, tokenize digit, function, tokenize symbol. This is obviously, I don't, it might not be obviously to you, but for me it's obvious. I don't want to bash someone. Writing a tokenizer is not an easy task if you're not used to write something like that. And it is working fine, I guess. That's great. And that's why we code review it. Because when you go into your tunnel, or you write your own code, if you have written this code yourself, you don't need to extract it. You know what your code is doing, but still, if finding bugs and everything is way easier when your code is better structured. So this function really everybody should understand. So we go through the input, we read each character, and then we check if they for the different cases, and if depending on the case, we do tokenize it as a letter, as a digit, or as a symbol. So let's check the letter one. It's quite easy. Digit and letter is the easiest one, I guess. Let's start with digit. Digit is super easy. We check if we are inside a string. I guess is inside a string. It's a really great variable naming. When a token got the symbol string start, if we tokenize that, then it should be inside a string. These numbers are inside a string, and then this should be valid. But if we are not inside a string, if we have something like that, it shouldn't be valid. And then we are not inside a string. I guess this is what the Boolean does. So, and then we add it to our token, which is named string here, because we want the full string. Yeah, that's easy as that. And if we have found an identifier, then we also add this to an identifier. An identifier is something like that. Then these digits are added to the identifier. So, and expecting number or identifier true. Okay, so when we are not an identifier and when we are not inside a string, then we are expecting a number or identifier, which is odd. Let's trace this variable. If a hyphen, then we are expecting number or identifier. Is it used anywhere else? Yes, here. Multiplication, expecting number or identifier. Ah, okay, yeah. But why do we expect number or identifier after a non-identified? When we are not inside a string. Then we don't. If we didn't found an identifier and we have the first digit, then we dodge it. So that means we have found a bug, I guess. That means when I have let's change the input. When I have something like that, it should be the easiest thing in the world. Yes, we have found a bug. There should be 2 tokens for the numbers. Let's fix that. It's quite easy. We also, I guess it's enough to do that. And also to make this identifier found, this is actually an identifier. At least it should be treated as one. So we have here identifier found equal to. Like I said, I read the code for the first time like you do, so maybe I mess up a lot, but this looks good to me. I could change that so fast because his variable naming is good here. So props to him. So we fixed this bug, which I think he's very happy that we found that. So we are back here. And let's check its letter. So we add the string to the character. And then we check when we are not inside the string, then we are expecting parameters. This is function stuff. That is, we definitely, if we are not in a string, then we have found an identifier. That's just how it is. I would do it like that, and then you see that this check does actually absolutely nothing. I would write it like that. That shouldn't change anything. Yes. So then we check if it is a white space. If we are not inside a string is not empty, we push the string. This fixed the bug. Or if you remove that, you have a bug. Let's remove that to show you. I think he doesn't have an example for that, so this isn't the bug. But if we add multiple spaces now, we add empty tokens. Oh, we don't. Then screw what I said. But I would have done the same. Oh, it's a letter thing. Oh, this maybe should. Yeah. This doesn't look good. This should be different identifiers. Actually, I think this code is not needed because we just added the character here. So string can't ever be empty because we literally added the character here. So this code, in my opinion, does nothing, and we have tested some edge cases. So this does nothing. It's always not empty because we just filled it here. And then we push the token, and then we push the white space. So when we go in here, we have tokenized letter. Go in here, we add this one, we add that. We are not inside the string. We add the identifier character to the identifier. I guess this shouldn't be string, this should be identifier. If it's not an if the identifier is not empty, because that's not an obvious case. Still, interestingly enough, we didn't finish the token on a space. This should be token A, token A, token A, token hello world, hello dot. So this should be multiple tokens. Let's check it out. There's an issue with the white space. Yes, so white space should clear the identifier. So this should be identifier every time we push something like this one. First of all, let's fix that. I need to, if I check the identifier, I need to push the identifier. And so when we are white space, then we push the identifier, and it makes total sense if we push the identifier to clear it afterwards. This is great. We go tokenized letter, which is definitely the case. Let me check that we first, because this is huge. Tokenized letter is called when this is a letter, and the white space is not a letter, if I remember correctly. So why in the hell do we have white space checks in here? Tokenized letter, it pushes a white space. As a token. This can never be the case. Because tokenized letter is only called for A to Z characters. So that shouldn't be the case. We can scrap that. This is never true. So we basically looked at code which does nothing. So when we're not inside a string, we add it to the identifier. Makes total sense. Then we check, is it a reverse reserved keyword or operator? We check the whole string. So let's close that one and open that one. Is reserved keyword checks if it's a keyword or operator. That makes sense. And if that's the case, then we push the appropriate operator or keyword. Else we do nothing, which is absolutely wrong. I don't know why. He doesn't check all operators. He just checks operators where letter is the case. Ooh. Out, return, and with, is that correct? Here, as, was, and everything needs to be in there. Out, return, and these ones are missing. So when we have an if, it doesn't work, correct? We don't do syntax checks, we just tokenize. Yes, it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work because why is here no default? And we do default like that. And we push the string. This looks way better. If it's now there, with is now there. And now also we got for free the ones he didn't check. For example, as should also work correctly. Great. This works. And else we don't have any else, because the else case is basically the identifier. When the identifier is, which isn't working. These are all identifiers, and we need to fix that. So let's check. So this is fixed now. It does what it should do. Now symbol. That's a special one. And I search one symbol, which is a white space. Because there's a bug in the white space. White space. There it is. If we are inside a string, we add it. That's fine. But if we're not inside a string, I try to copy his style so that we can just do a pull request and he can do whatever he wants to that. If it's not inside a string, then we need to push the identifier. That's crucial. Tokens push identifier. And we only do that if the identifier is not empty. If it's called like that, right? Yes. So if the identifier is not empty, then we push it. That fixes this bug. This should, oh, and we clear the identifier. That should fix it. A string hello, a hello, which is bogus, because we need also string to be empty. A string hello dot string, correct. So we fix this case, and guess what? Tokenize white space. Okay, tokenize white space. So, test still works way better. So, if is hyphen, we're expecting hyphen, whatever is hyphen. My English isn't good enough. Hyphen, it's a minus basically. If it is hyphen, we're expecting a number or an identifier. Does he checks for that? Because normally tokenizer could give a shit, but then it's not a tokenizer, it's a lexer. And if it doesn't, if we are expecting that is actually doing something, looks like it. Yes, okay, it actually does something. Honestly, I don't think it does it correctly, because the white space one should clear it. So when we have an identifier, if we have an identifier, then we shouldn't expect any one more. So this should get to false, and if we check it, there are also ones closing parentheses. Yes, makes sense. It's correct. So when we could have something like that, then we have A as an identifier and a closing parenthesis as basically closing the identifier. Does this work? Yes, it does. But it's the wrong way. That's actually bad. This should be A and then should be closing parentheses. So we have another bug. So that's why we check the closing parentheses now. These are the ones, yeah. So operator symbols, closing brace is the one we are checking. If we're not inside a string, also here he is inside the string, does the top one when the string case and the bottom one not the string case. I would love if the order wouldn't flip around. Here it's not inside the string, and I have to, if it's always is inside the string, the top one, then you know first the string handling and the other one is the other one. I would definitely switch them up just to have a little bit of consistency in here. And then you will find out that if it's inside the string, we'll pretty much always do that. And you can move it way up and have an edge case for that, which is easier to understand. Let's do that. Let's fix the inside a string one because this is bothering me. So when we have double quotes, then we are inside a string. And if we are not inside the string, we are inside the string false. There shouldn't be too many who does that. Inside the string false, backslash. When the previous was a backslash and the current one, there was not a back. Okay, yeah, that's the edge case one. We are still in double quote. So double quote, double quote. This isn't correct. This should an error, give an error. If we do EOS and we are inside the string, yeah, no, this is strange, honestly. Oh, we were in JSON rules. Sorry, we were in the wrong one. So backslash previous one. If we're not on backslash, or if we're not backslash double quotes, then it's false. That's correct. What is EOS? EOS. That's the wrong one. This shouldn't finish a string, in my opinion. In EOS, if identifier is found inside string like false, this is not needed. But it shouldn't do any harm. It shouldn't do anything, to be honest. So, and if we are inside a string, guess what? We add the character. If we're not inside a string, we have an identifier. And if we're inside a string, guess what? We add a character. And this goes through everything. And there's one simple thing we can do. And this will simplify his code plenty much. If we're inside a string, we add the character. and we have one edge case. We are not a double quote. And not or and character, not a double quote. This shouldn't do. Now it should be doubled. Sorry, now it should be doubled because we add them in both cases. But now we can remove is inside string completely everywhere. So this can remove. Not inside string needs to stay. Tokenized letter, identifier found, whatever. Yes. We don't need that because if it is inside a string, then it shouldn't be here anyway. So is inside string, whatever. That one. If it's inside the string, guess what? We have the character. Honestly, I'm reading the code for the first time, but the thing why I understand that so fast is I simply know how to write a tokenizer. And then here also it always does the same because that's how it works. If we're not inside a string, the double quote one is the only special case. And if inside the string and the backslash one, it's a special case. If the previous this backslash case, when the previous one is a backslash, handling backslashes I would do completely different, and we will change that. But for now, to make it working again, if it is inside string, yes, we need also have an edge case for backslash for now. And not double quote and character is not a backslash. That should again work like before, but I still messed up because here we have continue. Yes. Still we have this parentheses bug, which we check out now. Closing bracket is basically the case. Is it closing angle bracket? Closing brace, he named it like that. So when we have closing brace, he pushes the brace, but still he needs to push the identifier. If identifier not empty, so tokens push identifier. It fixes that, and then we need to empty the identifier. Now the identifier is there. A identifier. This fixes this bug. Quite easy when you know what you understand. I think that's very hard to follow. The thing is, what has happened? He didn't do this one. Let me explain that. He didn't push the identifier and emptied it. So he pushed the closing brackets. So when the code goes through here, he adds, this is the letter A, and we add the letter A to the identifier. So The loop goes around, it sees the letter A, and the letter A gets added to the identifier. And then he comes to the closing bracket, closing brace, and then he pushes the closing brace. But he didn't push the identifier. But the identifier still is in the variable string and identifier. And then the next one is a white space, and the white space in our case pushes the identifier. If I remember correctly, tokenized white space pushes identifier. That's why the identifier got pushed after the closing brace. What the previous code, we have the bug in place, if I remember correctly, yes. Brace, then A. If we write it A and then closing brace, it works because the white space pushes the identifier. But a tokenizer should be robust, it should work like that. And to make it work like that, obviously we need to push the identifier. So we need to do this code here. And every time you want to copy code, guess what? Make a function. Push identifier. And then it does all the shenanigans that we need. It removes that and everything. So if it's a white space, push the identifier. And also if we have closing brace, push identifier if you have one. It doesn't do anything. Push identifier if exists. Makes more sense. So this fixes this bug. So let's go on. Hyphen. This one is tricky because I don't understand what hyphen does in his language. So if we are expecting an identifier, we actually still expecting an identifier, which feels odd and wrong. Then we push the string. If identifier found. It depends. Can his language start with an identifier with a digit? Let's say yes. Just for me to simplify things for now. Let's add digits to the identifier. So this could be an identifier now. Yes. So the hyphen, we are expecting an identifier. Oh, he has a variable identifier found. Okay, if we expect an identifier, then we also still expect an identifier. This variable makes it really hard for me to understand what it does. I understand the English wording, don't get me wrong, but the meaning behind this is not clear for me. So it is false, yes. If we have a digit, we expect an identifier. Feels totally wrong to me, because why the hell should the number 9 expect an identifier behind that? If we push an identifier, I set it to false. Addition operator expecting an identifier makes sense. Multiplication, yes, yes, yes. Those make all sense. That a digit expect an identifier makes no sense to me. That is actually not correct, I guess, and it doesn't matter. So we are expecting identifier. So normally when we have a hyphen or we have multiplication and we are expecting an identifier, this should be an error. Oh yes, ooh, that's a tricky case. Now I get it. There could be 1 multiplied minus 2. It's a tricky one. Because multiply does expect an identifier, but minus 2 is actually totally fine. What does this tokenizer do with that now? 1 and the hyphen is completely eaten away. Doesn't care about it. It's not even in the token list. So let's fix that. So we go into the hyphen and you know the drill. Organize hyphen. Organize hyphen. So we expect an identifier. If that is the case, then the hyphen needs to be added to the identifier. That's how I would do it. So string plus equal character, string plus equal, so identifier plus equal character. Push string, yes, string plus character. Yes, so what we can do is push identifier if exists. So when we come to the hyphen, we push the previous identifier if one exists. Then if we are already expecting an identifier, we don't expect an identifier anymore because the hyphen now is part of the identifier. Then we add the hyphen to the identifier and we don't do anything else. That is the expected number identifier case. And the other one is we add this minus or the hyphen to the current string. Then he reads ahead. The next character, if it is a closing angle brace, minus greater than, what do we do with the previous one? Wow, this is all bogus. So we push the identifier, which I did here. We push the action operator. Ooh, yeah, now I get it, okay. This is very hard to understand because he has the action operator. We need to check for that. Okay, yes, now I know what this does. So previous is not needed anymore. Identifier found equals false. So we push the identifier. We don't care about the identifier anymore. So we don't care about identifier found or whatever shenanigans here is. And that actually means we don't care about the previous one also. So we have the current character, and if the next character, we need to read ahead here to detect the closing. What we could do is, instead of next, there's again this issue. We could change the closing angled bracket to whatever, and then it doesn't match up anymore with the action operator. So what I would do is, this also increases the position variable, which is definitely not something we want to do. We want to do that later, but only if that's the case. So we have here var check action operator equals character plus that, and then we check if this is the action operator, because that's our odd edge case, and this will go out anyway. So we need to check the bigger code token symbol. Yes, okay. This here is continue. No matter what's happening, we should check the next one after that. That fixes also a lot of issues. And the same goes here. This should return. This shouldn't be, but yeah, it's just a switch in here, right? Doesn't matter then. Okay, great. So if we have a hyphen and then we have the action operator, we push the action operator, identifier string is empty, great. This is always the case, and you will find out now why. Because if that's not the action operator, then it is great. Push the hyphen, I guess. So now the -2 isn't working. So if we are expecting an identifier because of the multiplication, right? Multiplication operator, expecting an identifier. I think all operators are handled wrong. Because in my opinion, the only thing an operator should do is first of all push the identifier if exists. Then it should push the operator itself. So we can push character. And then we expect number or identifier. In my opinion, that's everything the operator should do. And this is the case for every operator. Operators are always a single one, right? Yes. Modulus operator. All should do the same. That's 100% the case. Addition operator, yes. Oh, addition operator is a special one because concatenation, but it's not so special. Because concatenation is just The only difference is the one is with strings and the other one is with numbers. Here is the concatenation operator. I already added that one. So this simplifies the code plenty. So we push identify if exists. This also clears everything. Let's not make assumptions. Yes, this also clears everything. And then we push the appropriate empty string, and then we expect an identifier. So multiplication is there now. This is looking correct. The minus is missing, so let's check it out. So why is the minus missing? So we come in here, we are at the white space, and the white space has pushed the multiplication. We are expecting an identifier. So we come in here and so if expecting identifier is true, it's the special case, and the other one is the case we have written here. So we are expecting an identifier, right? Console log. Which should totally just be called one time. It's not. So we come in here, multiplication operator. We're not expecting an identifier. Expecting identifier true. Let's see. Console log character. The multiplication. This sets expecting identifier to be true. Then there comes the white space. Oh, here's the issue. The white space pushes identifier if exists. Doesn't end identifier exists? Not really. Because multiplication white space should do absolutely nothing. Because we have the multiplication has pushed the identifier, right? Multiplication operator pushes the identifier. That's where, and then we go in here and we log the thing and push identifier if exists. Should empty the identifier. That's the issue. No. So we go input, and I don't have to switch around all the time. So we have the multiplication push the identifier 1. That's what it does. The white space already has pushed it. Then we have the multiplication, which shouldn't do too much. Push identifier does nothing in our case. If we're expecting identifier, shouldn't be the case. We push that. Identifier equals empty shouldn't be needed if I'm 100% honest. So, and then comes the minus, and we should expect an identifier. So we need to check where this is set to false. So at the beginning, yes. Push identifier if exists. Oh, the hyphen is not an operator. So we come to the hyphen or subtraction. If it is an identifier, it's not an identifier. We don't expect an identifier anymore. And then we add string or identifier. That's the reason why we don't come here, because the hyphen operator is already doing that. So let's, for readability, move that down here and do it like that. So that's why this isn't called. And do tokenize operator. Later, we add this code. If identifier not exist, push it, yes. And here with hyphen, we check this case. We do check the operator case. This could get index out of bound. So we also need to check if position lower or the input length is 1. So we have an out of bound check. Then we check, we do our so we have an out of bound check. We check if this is an action operator. If that's the case, then we will push the identifier if it exists, and then we push the action operator. Easy as that. And this is definitely return here. We are done. And if that's not the case, if we push through, then tokenize operator. Then we handle the minus like an operator. So we have dealt with this operator edge case. And now the hyphen or the subtraction should get in here, right? Console log the operator because no op. Check should be in there. Do operator because no action op, and then we got our code. That's fine. I'm so sorry, and it's not a code, this is a whole rewrite, looks like it, but I think this will help you a lot. This adds character, and this also adds to identifier, because the minus is now part of the identifier. And there it is, -2. And this also works like that. And oddly enough, currently, this also works like that, which shouldn't be the case. And that's what we need to fix now. So when we are tokenize operator, we expecting identifier and we only support that for plus and minus. Character equals Salt operators. Fraction operator. It should be 3, I guess. It's the JavaScript thing. So please correct me if I did that wrong. Salt operators, because the 3 ones also check the type. Because JavaScript has some odd implicit casting stuff. So now this shouldn't be the case. This should be multiply. Yes. And that should be an error, obviously, but it doesn't have implemented errors for now, but now this is tokenized correctly. So we have done a lot. We have done all operators and the special operator. EOS is really easy. EOS is semicolon, right? Yes. Guess what? Semicolon push identify if exists. And push yourself. Easy as that. Test equals test string block colon. Great. Backslash special one, we look into that later. Double quote special one, we also look into that later. Comma is really easy. We can treat the comma like an operator. Oh, he does if expecting parameters. Whatever. Way easier to treat it as an operator. Because what the operator basically does, it pushes the identifier if there is one, and then it pushes the character. And for comma, that's basically how things work. So closing brace is inside scope, yes. Special one, look into that later. Parentheses, special one. Assignment operator is an operator. So now comes the tricky ones. So this should still work. We had an assignment here and it doesn't. So does we have equal here equation operator? But what is the assignment operator? Oh, it's double dot. Okay. Where's the equation operator? Missing. Oh, another bug. Actually, we can do a default here. And console log error or character. And now if we miss that, error 4 equal, great. Now you also will understand that there is a problem with that, and we also can remove our debug code in the operator. So that is, in my opinion, better now. So let's do close it, double quotes, and let's do backslash. Backslash is a tricky one. We need to check the next. If inside string, yes. If not inside string, we should have an error. Log slash outside of string. That should not be the case. Yes. Let's do a test with backslash. Basically what we want to have is that. Backslash n, backslash patch, backslash whatever. So error for dot. Oh, dot is. Does he have a description for the dot? No, he doesn't. But we are inside a string, so why? Oh, yes. We are inside a string. We haven't handled that case correctly. If inside string, not a double quote, not a backslash, just add it. This should happen to the dot. I make with adding those ones, I broke it. Yes. Okay, so this is backslash is not treated correctly. So let's fix that. If inside string previous backslash was basically backslash backslash. I would do that differently. I would read the next one like we did before with the action operator. Like this one. I steal that code. So backslash. So if it's not the case, if that's the case, we have a problem, a big one. Unexpected end of file is the problem. We expect how are they named? Or backslash thingy. I don't know how they're named. So what we can do for now, ignore the backslash. We get the next one. And string plus equal caret next. And the problem with that is we also need to increase the position by 1. Because we basically handled the next character already here. So this is bogus. So this should handle the backslashes correctly. Now we have an N written in there. This and this one should be correctly handled. So we have backslash N, we have backslash. This is not correct. Oh, JavaScript 4 are actually 2 backslashes. So we have backslash and we have backslash backslash and we have backslash upper string. So now it looks like that. Backslash n backslash 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 upper string. Test equals string n space space. Should look a little bit different, I guess. So there should be n space backslash space double quote. That's what I expect. N space no backspace double quotes, because we should be backslash I think I need to do that with the identifier, right? So we are inside a string, that's true, because we have no outside string backslash error. So we come in, we read the n, we add the n to the string, and then we are done. But we're only done when I write here break. So we are adding the n, then we are skipping over the n, we are at a white space. So where we handle the white space, we don't handle the white space because yes, we have the special case where we are inside a string, then we add the white space. So let's check how that works. Inside the string. So our double quotes should be skipped. We should get in here 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Let's write it out. Congo log double quote. Because I guess we go in here too often. If not inside string, then inside string 2. That is correct. Let's handle double quotes here first. Push identifier if it exists. Then we go inside the string. I wouldn't push the double quotes. I would say string plus equal double quotes. I would add them to the token. And identifier equal double quotes. Identifier found, identifier false, whatever. Shenanigans. And I found it because we are the identifier. And if we are inside a string, again, I would move them around. So if we are inside a string and we have a double quote, this means we end the string. We don't do any backslash shenanigans anymore. Basically what we do is we do a string equals double quote identifier equals double quote, and then we can't push the identifier. So inside string false, that is correct. This is how I think this should work. Double quote on double quote. So we vet this one and let's remove the \1 really fast. If inside string, how have we done that for the action operator? We haven't. Interesting. So we need to do position plus here. There's a bug. So now we go in test equals and then it is the N is missing. Let's remove the backslash real fast, just to fix the issue. So we have now an empty string equals empty string, which is not correct. Should be equals bloop. So the on double quote. So we come in here. We are on a double quote. We are not inside a string. We push the identifier. We say we are inside a string. We add the double quote to the identifier. Say also identifier found. And then the next double quote pretty much is ignored because of those. Because we go in here, we never come out basically. What have I done something wrong? So let's check for block character. On double quote, here it is on double quote, okay. So when we are then character, because I made that an identifier. Now we have it. There it is, bloop and whatever shenanigans. That is working. And now we want to be able, first of all, we want to be not able to do something like that. So we need an error. This should give us an error for sure. Let's check that out. Let's do tokenize backslash. Let's do that. And the double quote one we can use. That is working now. And we do tokenize. So this video is becoming endlessly long, sorry for that, but I think we will help one of my subscribers a lot with that. So if we are inside a string, we are actually not inside a string. We push identifier, then, sorry, backslash. If we are inside a string, doesn't matter, we are not inside the string, should be backslash outside the string. So let's first of all check if we are called. And backslash. So we have the backslash, we are not called. Okay, the reason for that, I don't know. Another one, no. Where do we land? That's the question. Oh, it's in tokenized symbol. Is it a symbol? This regex isn't working correctly. Let's do that one. This should fix a lot. Yes, we are. Backslash outside of string. There's a bug with this regex. And we don't need it because we have that one, which he used here at the bottom before. But so now the backslash stuff is working. He didn't detect the backslash correctly. And now we have backslash out of string. This is an error, and if we got an error, you basically should stop tokenizing anyway, because after that it will be just mayhem. So we have the error. Maybe I should control better. Yes, way better. We have another one. So we have an error, so let's deal with that. And let's move that inside the string. Yes, works. Great, and let's recreate our case. So now we have an issue because this one is closing the string. Then we have the tokenizer, and then this one is handled as a full string. So because backslash goes in here, we don't have an error. The end is actually working. Okay. We get those and backslash. Oof. Why is it space? So tokenize backslash breaks. So we go out of here. This is in tokenized symbol. Oh, I increased the position, but I want to increase the index. Also. This works now. The N is missing. Why is the N missing now? N backslash whatever. Again, so we have now N space backslash space double quotes. Great. So, and now we can handle here. This works now. We need to increase the index, which is also the case for the action operator. So here we also need to increase the index because this is handled out 2 times. So we need to check why out, if, and everything is in there double. This is kind of strange. That's the reserved keyword one. if reserved keyword. Okay. Need to also enter the identifier. Now this is looking better. Expect an identifier. Guess return also expects an identifier depending on the situation. So I would do it like that, and only this case do it like that. So test equal sign is missing. The backslash thing is working. Semicolon out if with as a1 1 multiplied, the multiplication is missing. So now we have strange behavior. With the hyphen. I made something broken with and this returns tokenized hyphen and symbols. Okay, great. Let me check the equal. Definitely like it again. It is processed. Let's check everything that is not inside the string. It is still processed. Okay, then we go into symbol, hopefully. Assignment operator. Tokenize operator. Push identifier, if expecting identifier and subtraction. Then we do this shenanigans. And if we're not, we just push the character. Doesn't push the operator anymore. Our operator detection is not working. Oh, it's not assignment. I have done that wrong before. The equation operator. But that's also tokenized operator. Operator minus, yes. Why is that the case? I mean, it's the first character. Oh, we go in here. We are not inside a string. We are here, and then the first character. This letter is digit. Hopefully, it's not true. Shouldn't be. And then we do console log this symbol. Oof. The equation is not a symbol. Could I break something? Dishandled symbols. Also, paragraph operator. So let's just check where we use that. Is reserved keyword or operator. We have the action operator handled. So it should only be is reserved keyword. And then we have sort operator. Import that one. First keyword, and then we have symbols or operator. Yes. Now we're getting there. Cleaned up everything. Remove a lot of those shenanigans. So is operator gone? Remove the character. So now we have test. That's correct. We have the equal operator. We have as a string n backspace backslash space upper quotes, loop end of string. Then we have the semicolon, that's correct. Then we have the action operator. Then we have out if with as a1 1 multiplied by -2 a closing parentheses hello dot as a string. So this is looking correct to me. So we have bracing. Inside scope. Do we use that? We set it to true, we set it to false, we will never use it. I suggest, yeah, we can leave it. So opening brace, we push the opening brace thing and identifier equals empty. And closing brace, push identifier, makes sense. Empty. Also done this way. They are looking fine. We are basically just pushing the braces. Parentheses, entire font. String, closing parentheses. Expecting parameters. False. This is also true. So if we remove the scope things, they are all handled the same. Is inside something scope, not even initialized as a global variable. So we push basically the character now, and then we do that. That's the case for closing, opening, closing parentheses, opening parentheses, closing angled brace. If previous hyphen, this case has already been taken care of. And then this one is basically an operator with opening. Is also an operator, which means lower and greater. So now the language also supports one lower. Do that, whatever that means. So if one lower to closing parentheses, this is now working. There's one bug. It's not a bug, it's not supported currently. Just this case. Which is now 2 operators. Should be 1 in my opinion. But I don't want to add features here. There's also missing, for example, that phase. That should also be 1, in my opinion. And that's actually easy to add. Now that we add it. Let's not add that. He can add that later. I want to close the video. The video is already 2 hours long, but I think we have covered a lot. We have basically rewritten a lot of this code, a lot of stuff on variables and everything he has aren't needed anymore. For example, expecting parameters. But they are used for error output. For example, we're expecting a parameter, but we didn't have one. Stuff like that. This is, in my opinion, not... You can do it in the tokenizer, but this is more AST stuff. So since we are not using that anymore, let's remove that. Same with identifier found. Never checked. Concatenating is another one. The reason why I would remove them is I would do that in another step. I wouldn't do them together. End of string reached isn't used. Concatenation operator found. It's not used. Code found shouldn't be used. Expecting string identifier. Yes. I have code for that, which is completely unnecessary. This is actually used in the operator. So this one we need. Action operator found is not needed. So this should still work. Great, I think he will be very happy with that. For the backslash ones, I would handle them differently. I would still want the backslashes in the string. So let's do that. Now we have as token the string backslash n backslash 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 the string. This is cleaner in my opinion to pass later. And the checks, if we have expected an identifier and everything, would be not part of the tokenizer. It is part of the parsing of the tokens. So I would add another step at the very bottom here, where you go through all the tokens and check if they are in the right order. That's way easier than to do it while tokenizing. And to go over 26 tokens or whatever you have, we don't need to talk about performance there. So this is everything I have for you for this week. I will upload this video basically uncut because I don't cut 2 hours long coding session. But thank you for my subscribers. Thank you for my Patreon. Thank you, Jason, for giving me the opportunity to code review or rewrite your whole tokenizer. I'm sorry. I hope you will learn something. Have a great week. Bye.